Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
I fell into a burning ring of fire. I went down, 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 and the flames went higher.
I was wondering where this is going.
And
I was just sitting here.
Burns. The ring of fire.
I was literally like, what is he doing?
The ring of fire.
That's because writing's on fire again.
Yeah, that's true. That was my Johnny Cash impersonation.
Oh, is that an impersonation?
His impersonation of his singing.
Why are you doing a Southern accent?
I feel like Johnny Cash would not have been famous if he had my singing capabilities.
I feel like that's an accurate assessment.
No.
Yes.
It would have been a huge fail. Yeah, fires are burning here in Reading again, and it was burning close to our house, and we had to do a little evac.
Yep, we packed up. Okay.
Let's say I had to do an evac.
That's true. I was out of town.
You were.
And I sent a friend over with FaceTime to go through my stuff.
Mm-hmm. And grab the things that were
things.
important, which she was laughing because there were some things that you grabbed that it was like, okay.
I know, like my snow boots. Definitely can't lose those.
Yeah, no, it was a little anxiety driving for sure for me.
Yeah. Well, we've done this now. This is like a couple years in a row.
No, I mean, this is the second time we've actually had to do that, but fires are terrible here.
Yeah, the car
fire. Yeah. So I don't know.
I've just felt really loved because so many people on social media have reached out and so many people who just know.
to check in on us.
Yeah, and I felt really loved by that. I was like, oh, I should remember to check in on people when I hear stuff's going on around them.
I just assume
they're busy dealing with it.
Yeah, I don't want to bother them. And if they died in the middle of the tragedy, then I can't get a hold of them anyhow.
Justin.
So it's
You're
just
so dark.
No, it's just reasonable. It's just don't call them.
Yeah, but it has made me think I really do want to get better at like caring for people because it's nice. It's nice when people think of you.
Yeah, it was very nice. And so we got the joy of staying at one of our friends' house last night.
Yep.
That was super cool. And this time I did, just so everyone knows, because I'm sure everyone's wondering, are your action figures okay, Justin? And the answer is yes, part of them are.
A few.
I grabbed the ones that last time I didn't grab any. This time I was like, you know what? This fire's so close. I am grabbing all of the Ninja Turtles right there and a bunch of G.I. Joes. And I was like, the rest.
You're going to have so much fun setting them back up. If our house doesn't burn down.
Yeah, sure. It's adult playtime.
I felt a surprising amount of peace considering we just did a remodel.
Yeah.
About like, well, if we lose the house, we lose the house.
I literally was telling somebody yesterday as I was hauling stuff out, I just said, right now what I'm doing is letting go of my house. And I'm literally just letting it go and saying, thank you that I have enough insurance to cover this.
Yes. Yes.
So that's real. Anyways, did it trigger me? Absolutely. Is this podcast today about triggers? Yes, it is. Look at that lead in.
Segue.
Yeah, it's totally triggered.
It's so true. You were triggered. Before we jump into
that fire triggered me. Terrible fire. We're going to get into in this conversation about people and how they perceive triggers and how they perceive them wrongly. And we're going to get into some...
And maybe how they perceive them rightly sometimes.
Maybe so, but we're going to get into conversations about ownership. Some
misconceptions around triggers.
It's going to be really cool.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
I was going to say before we jump into that, I'm really excited because we have our lovely assistant, Flo.
Hello.
On the podcast with
Another
us.
Brit.
Yes.
Her and Ruth.
You guys just collect Brits.
We do.
It's like you just mop us up wherever you go.
And yet I still can't do a British accent to save my life.
Try it.
Do it.
Give the people what they want.
Yeah.
Give the people what they want.
Yeah, that's all right. That's all right.
But it's only because I literally repeated the sentence right after you.
And you've been watching Ted Lasso, so now it's sort of starting to happen.
We have been watching Ted Lasso. That is true.
But I am really bad. If you weren't here and you asked me to do a British accent and you didn't say something right before me, no good would come from it.
You can parrot, basically. You
can
mimic.
Only kind of. It's only because I barely said the words after you. Like say something really British.
Good afternoon, Abigail Stumvoll.
Good afternoon, Flo Chater.
Oh, very nice.
I guess I can pair
You've
it.
got a good posh one. Yeah.
I used to have a good Cockney accent.
Go on then.
Yeah, I can't now.
Yeah, all right.
I had to train
Go on,
in college, and then it's gone.
Can you do a Cockney accent, Flo?
Oh my gosh, it's tedious. Well, I feel no,
It's
I
like
can't.
a trashy
if I do
accent.
it, you end
It's a
up.
trashy English accent.
Well, also you just
basically,
sound like Dick Van Dyke from Mary Poppins, don't you? If you do a Cockney accent.
I love Dick Van Dyke from Mary Poppins.
Oh, there you go.
Well,
He
Flo was
has
offended
one.
by him.
And his,
So it's all
his
of
accent.
England.
Sorry.
Anyway, it sounds like she's judgmental, but she's actually the most one. No, I'm just kidding. I'm actually kidding towards accents, but she is one of the most wonderful humans, and anyone who's emailed us has gotten the pleasure of working with her. And we have so many people all the time who just tell us how much they enjoy her,
Aw.
and we as well do. That's why we keep her around. And we thought we'd have her on the conversation to talk about triggers.
Triggers.
There it is. Flo also likes to sing oftentimes.
She does?
Yeah, she does. You didn't know that?
I didn't.
So
Oh,
she'll
yes.
she'll sing things to me
Like what?
when she's doing stuff. I mean, it's just practical things. She'll just sing them.
I'm
Or
gonna
if
send
I
this
have like
email.
a question. Yeah, no, exactly.
I have a question.
100%.
You
It's
do-
like a full
we do
opera in there.
Yes. Oh, I love that.
all
She's like
times.
part of our DNA.
Which we're gonna get into this whole conversation about how she was really triggered about having fun, which is gonna be a really good story that we're gonna
Yeah.
dive into.
We're gonna
And
go
now
there.
you're really fun. So
Now you're, and she was probably fun before, but
nope.
This is what happened. Yeah. You work with you guys for a year and suddenly you're just the most fun person around.
well, I will say that is true. In the middle of a lot of triggers, we do have a lot of fun.
You do.
Yeah,
I mean, and
we
Flo
try
can
to.
attest. We trigger a lot. She's been around for me and Justin triggering at each other. Me
Oh,
and
yeah, she
PC
has.
triggering at each other.
No, straight up, I've seen some things.
Yes.
Shit has gone
You're
down.
not lying.
Straight up, I've seen some things. But she's also watched us work through
Yeah.
a lot of the things.
Mhm.
So what has it been like?
Yeah,
watching
why don't we
those?
ask that?
Well, I internally am also triggering when you two trigger.
Yes.
We've had situations sometimes when we're working at the house.
Yep.
And you guys are so healthy in the way you do this thing called pro-conning. So when you have an idea, you go back and forth on all the possible pros and cons of an idea.
Yeah.
And I used to
I
watch
do
you
that.
guys
Justin
do that.
hates it.
But you're good at it and it's balanced. And there's, you listen to one another. You genuinely want to fight to find the best idea, even if it means you both have to make compromises.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But every time that you would start to go through this process, I would sit there in this, I don't know if it was like a childhood flashback place. I don't know where my mind was going, but it was a bit of a, oh my goodness, mummy and daddy are fighting. What should I do? I just need to be as small as possible and disappear. And I would sit like a mute at your table and just in my mind, like, let it end, let it end, let it be over, let
I
it
can
be
always
over.
feel you every time
You
too.
feel me literally tensing up at the table.
So true.
When will they stop? And then you guys would just maneuver your way through, hear each other. There have been moments of timeouts. There have been moments
There's
of coming
been
back.
definite
Lots
moments
of
of
There have
time
been
moments.
some
out.
walk around the blocks for sure.
Yeah.
And then I've actually got to witness some of the most healthy, like reconstruction of relationship and patience and time taken to actually hear each other, apologize, take ownership. I feel like I've had the masterclass in triggers in the last, beyond just taking the course, actually just getting to watch the way that you two live your lives. And it, Pete, two friends of yours who operate in the same way that you do. It's been stunning for me.
We had me and Pizzi, we were on such a time restraint to get things ready for the Pathway to Freedom. She came out for a week and we had so much to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And with a lot left to do and only like one night left to do it, me and her got into conflict where we went round and round and round. And then the next day, and we ended up spending probably 5 hours trying to work through the conflict, which both of us were like, oh my God, this is taking all of our time to get stuff done. But connection is so important that we did it. But it was funny because Flo just definitely had to sit there and watch. And I halfway feel this thing of like, oh, it's good for people to get to watch this process. But then I halfway feel like it's horrible because in one of my jobs, it happens to me a lot where people trigger together, but you aren't allowed to interrupt. So you're just sitting there literally like in your childhood again, watching like, oh no, what's going to happen?
Oh, 100%. I'm like, shall I just pick up my things and quietly leave? Or
Yes.
But I think the beautiful thing about you and Pizzi is because I actually did have to go. That went on through the night. So I did have to go.
Yep.
And I come back the next morning and I'm like parked outside your house and I have no idea where, I know she's getting on a flight in just a second. Don't know where things are at. And I walk in, and because you two have so much history, because you two have so much wisdom in this area and you know how to do this, you had reconciled and found this beautiful, peaceful spot. And I walk in and you guys are like stroking each other's hair and like just like best friends forever again. It's like, this truly is magical. Like, this is it right here, that actually you've been able to pull out of that back into this beautiful, peaceful place of friendship.
Well, in the course that we do, the Pathway to Freedom, me and Pizzi talk about what goes on in your brain and your body and triggers. And so actually the night that we got into a huge, it wasn't even a huge thing, but the night that we got stuck in a trigger cycle.
Yeah, it was strong.
We ended up doing what we talk through the ways that you need to deal with things in your body and in your mind in order to be able to get to reconciliation. And so we were able to follow those steps, and the Pathway to Freedom changed me and Pizzi's friendship dramatically, because when you get the same language and the same concepts and you don't use them as weapons, like I wasn't like, you're triggered, you're doing this, like, because that's using it as a weapon, but you use it like, okay, it feels like maybe you're triggered because I can see this and this and this is happening. Is that true? Or it feels like I'm triggered and I'm trying to figure out this and this and this. But then having the understanding of what's going on inside of us, what's going on in our, and having tools of like, okay, well, my confirmation bias wants to tell me that you're against me. So I need to look for all the ways that you're actually for me in this moment. And I need to, so it's just it's an interesting thing because before this, I had a lot of pain in confrontation with Pizzi, because we had a confrontation, I don't know, like 7 years ago now, I think, 6 or 7 years ago, where it didn't go well and she stopped talking to me for months, and cut off all communication. Her husband cut off all communication. It was very painful for both of us. And it went so bad that every time we had conflict after that, after we finally resolved it, but every time we had conflict, there was still this huge sense of anxiety because both of us were like, how, like, it could just get that big again. Right. It could just become huge like that again. Wow. And so every time we had conflict, we'd have like level 10 adrenaline, which made smaller conflicts a bigger deal. And it wasn't till we learned a completely new system of how we related to each other that it broke the history of how we had been doing things and created a new level of trust. Because now I know she knows how to handle a trigger. I know she knows what to do to walk all the way through the steps. See, when she just disconnected years ago, it's because she didn't know how to work all the way through the steps of a trigger. And so she just got lost in it and then couldn't handle the now I know she knows how to get all the way through. She knows I know how to get all the way through. And so we know together that we can navigate that. Anyway, it's a side note. I've just been thinking that it's so helpful to get on the same page with the people around you. In fact, that's what I talked to Justin. I think, and marriages, when people are asking me for marriage advice, like I love emotionally focused therapy. I think it's really great. I love the book Hold Me Tight. I think it's really great. But pretty much when people ask me for advice, I'm like, just find some healthy marriage things that you guys can both do where you get common language and common core values, because it will help you navigate things so much. Anyway, I feel like now I'm on, like, my spiel's done. Somebody cut me off.
It's good.
Take the mic back. Well, I think that as you look at so many relationships that end up falling apart, friendships, marriages, and stuff like that, oftentimes it's because there's these trigger cycles that people are inside of, and they're not aware of, like, oh, this is my pain coming up inside of me. This is what this is, and this is what I need to do to resolve about it. Yes. And when I think we as individuals become really aware of that, all of a sudden the high stakes on the relationship starts going down, because relationships start becoming the invitation to health, the invitation to growth and development inside of ourselves. Because when something's rubbing us wrong inside the relationship, we can go internally and go, all right, how do I become more powerful? How do I grow? How do I heal from something inside of me? So we have those opportunities inside of it. One of the misconceptions about triggers, like when I say the word trigger, a lot of people, I think generally speaking, that are have any association with the word will think of maybe trigger warning when they put trigger warning on something, and as if there's something that's about to trigger you, and this piece of content might be bad and you better be careful listening to it because it could make your emotions go bad. Or I think of the people who are exploding on camera, and they always make jokes about it and about triggered individuals, and they're yelling and screaming intensely at someone over something.
So you think a lot of people think triggers are like the huge emotions?
Yeah, just huge emotions. And also, I think a lot of people believe that triggers are something that someone's doing to you.
Yeah.
Oh, that was my belief. Absolutely.
Yeah, was it? Tell me about that.
And I think I had a complete misunderstanding of what a trigger was, which was unfortunate because I used the word a lot with a lot of authority. For me, my experience of taking the pathway to freedom was really just this revelation of, gosh, I have been misunderstanding what this is the entire time. Mm-hmm. So when I would speak about triggers, my language around it was that I used triggers as an instrument of blame. I pinned triggers on other people. Mm-hmm. For example, I would describe someone as a triggering person.
Yes.
And I, granted, prior to being
kind of like saying that person's an asshole.
Essentially, that person causes issues to me. You know, it's this victim mentality. Mm-hmm. It villainizes other people.
Yes.
I think this was very much part and parcel of the culture that I was living in before working with you guys. I was down in Los Angeles, and the number of times that this is granted in a stage of real unhealth in my life, me and my girlfriends would sit around a brunch table and be talking about people in a not very complimentary manner and say, oh, she's super triggering. Oh, he's so triggering. Oh my gosh, this is so triggering.
Yeah.
And it was like throwing blame. And I realize now that actually the language of ownership is so important with this in this conversation. Me learning to say, you know what, I was triggered by X, Y, and Z, be it an individual, a conversation, a circumstance, rather than I am a meek and innocent, powerless little woman and everything is coming at me with triggers ready to attack, has been huge for me. It's restructured so much.
Yeah. I mean, this is what I feel like is happening in culture at large right now, is the concept that external things are what are causing our internal frustration. So your political party is what is making me feel unsafe. Your belief system is what is destroying. And there is very little ownership of our own emotions and our own world. Like, oh, no, I have fear because this is reminding me of ... Or I have pain because this feels like this thing that happened to me. And ownership is so much like, my emotions belong to me, and it doesn't mean that anybody can do anything and I should be fine. It means that I am aware of what's going on inside of me, and I am practically working on managing that, knowing that I can get back to health and healing and wholeness regardless of if you or the circumstance becomes what I want it to be.
Yeah.
I think also when you're living from that blameless place, you genuinely start to assume positive intent from the people around you. And so for me, there was almost attached to my language around triggers an element of paranoia that I had let sort of rumble for years. And I think that this adoption of, you know what, no, likely what's happening right now is I'm experiencing an emotion which is tapping on something from my childhood, from my past, a fear that might be living in my subconscious and I can't even articulate in this moment, allows me to stop and look at the person in front of me and actually assume innocence of them. And when you do,
like, it's not
that,
like, oh, I feel this because you must be meaning this bad.
Exactly. And so it's actually this place of, okay, this is vulnerable, but if I open up, my discomfort is probably to do more with myself and my past, and even invite you into that, then we're going to move forwards in connection rather than me living in this place where I have to have thick walls of protection around me the whole time because the whole world is out to get me and I'm a completely innocent entity within it.
Well, and that's scary, isn't it? To actually, for so many people to say, all right, something's going on inside of me. Now I'm going to open up with you about the idea that something's going on inside of me. But the element of them seeing in feels very scary because that's vulnerable. But then it's the self-acknowledgement of like, oh, I probably have some historic pain. And for so many of us, we don't want to have to look at the pain that exists there.
It feels easier to blame something else.
Totally. I'd rather do that than have to deal with a mom wound or a dad wound or a authority wound or a childhood wound with some friends, like then have to look at any of that and deal with it. It's just easier to be like, oh, you know, you're a jerk and you stop doing what you're doing so I can be better. And then we'll just move on.
Well, I know like in the beginning of our marriage, I would feel like Justin was abandoning me. And there was very real behavior that he did where he wasn't aware of when he would disconnect from himself or when he would disconnect from me and that connection. There was very real behavior, but my huge emotions about it were coming from a history of attachment being removed or disconnection being really painful. And so a lot of times I kept trying to get him to change so that I could feel okay. Yeah. And I see that happen in a lot of relationships, work relationships, whatever. At the job I work with, I work for obviously Stumvoll Consulting, but I also am doing a consulting job at a business. And over again, I see in this place, if my boss did this, then I would feel ... If my boss made decisions like this, then I would feel ... Instead of why is this bringing up fear in me? Wow. What does my fear have to do with?
Why beyond, is this, bringing up frustration, anxiety, hopelessness.
One of the business coaches I love that works with the business, somebody was like, I'm afraid of getting fired. And they were like, okay, where's that fear in you? Right. Like, where is that coming from in you? Not where is that coming from in the culture? Where is that coming from the leader? Like, where is that coming from in you? And that idea of actually recognizing that in every triggering situation, there's a little bit of healing. And I would say this is a misconception about triggers, is that it's shameful to have them. It means you're broken. It means you're not whole. It means you're not healthy. And this is, I hit this with everybody. I'm like, no, I trigger multiple times a day. Like, we all trigger multiple times a day. And triggers, the other misperception, don't have to be huge emotional like exchanges. It doesn't have to be like Justin becomes a level 10. Justin could be sitting over there just quiet and he could go into freeze and not even say anything, and it could be a trigger. He could be, I can have, a trigger about the waiter bringing my food out wrong. Right. I know so many people who will tell me a story and they'll be like, I wasn't triggered, but I was frustrated that happened. I was like, frustration is a trigger. And they'll say like, I wasn't triggered. I just have a small emotion about . I'm like, triggers don't mean they're huge. Triggers are anytime we're having a reaction to something that's going on.
That's good.
You know? Like it's, and there's no shame then in owning like, oh, I'm having a reaction. Right. I'm having a response. Something's going on inside of me. And I can have reactions often. And that doesn't mean I'm broken. It doesn't mean I'm screwed up. In fact, what we say in the course all the time.
Human.
Yeah.
It means I'm human. And it's an invitation into wholeness. Like our emotions are trying to lead us back to healing. Our emotions are trying to get us to understand something's going on here. I need attention here. when we learn how to listen to our emotions instead of fight against them, triggers can actually be a great on-ramp into healing.
Yeah, it's super good.
Do you want to share, Flo, about a trigger story that you have and how you worked through it?
I know that you had a really big one around the journey of moving.
Oh gosh, you helped me through that place of manic.
Yes.
Yeah, I did.
Total meltdown.
Moving apartment. So this was a few months ago. I'm moving apartment across the city, and I'm a single woman moving in with other girlfriends, and I did not know how to ask for help. So I was packing up my apartment, got my U-Haul, got my boxes ready, and I am lugging heavy furniture.
Hot day.
It's a hot, we're talking Reading summer, 115, and I am lugging the heaviest boxes, and I am feeling so sorry for myself.
Totally.
Everything is coming up. I'm resenting my singleness. I'm resenting the fact that I, in my complete desire to be totally self-sufficient, haven't actually communicated to any of my friends or peers that I really could just do with half an hour of someone's time. I'm resenting my tiny car, which feels like it's about to break down at any moment. Completely my fault for not having the oil changed. I'm resenting the fact that there are stairs in my building. Like the audacity of my building to have stairs in this moment is crippling me.
Oh, absolutely.
And what's happening is that I am silently going up and down the stairs, lifting my boxes. I'm not making eye contact with anyone who is walking past me. And instead, if someone does come up the stairs, someone I know, a stranger, particularly if that person is a man and therefore is strong, I am building this mega case in my head of just complete misfortune, woe is me, pity me, and how dare you not stop in this moment? Can you not see that I am struggling? Can you not see that I need help? Can you not see that I'm sweating? I whip myself up into such a frenzy of extreme. It's sort of anger mixed with just like total self-pity. It's like a complete mismatch of emotions, but it's totally disproportionate to what's actually going on. And I remember walking into our apartment, and a guy friend of ours. So at this point in my mind, men are truly the enemy because men have more muscle power than I do, and therefore, oh my goodness. And I just look this guy in the eyes, and I'm feeling this like venomous rage at him. He doesn't ask me if I need a hand, and I do not communicate that I need a hand. And I take the final box and I go down, and I'm like spluttering with rage at this point. And I get to the office later. Truly.
I want to talk like her. I'm spluttering with rage.
No, truly, I'm like volcanic at this point. Like I'm about to explode. There is so much emotion going through my body that I do not know how I will physically contain it all. And I get to the office, and I come in, and I'm sitting across from Justin, and you can just tell it's like a hurricane has swept into your office building. And this this tiny little woman with so much emotion has arrived. And I don't say anything to you. I get on with my work, but I'm like in deep emotional fester at this point. And you oh so kindly, I think you just do one of those like you okay there, kiddo, kind of thing. Like one of those like, hey, can I just gently tap at your heart right now and maybe see if there's something stirring? And it all comes up. It like billows up, upset, loneliness, waves of just a feeling of chronic helplessness, powerlessness. And I have to go on this journey from that day, which is the journey I've been on in the last few months of trying to work out, Flo, when did this inability to ask for help or express your needs come up? And also examining, and again, you made this beautiful point earlier about actually releasing shame around triggers. But the aftermath of this experience is that I did feel a heavy weight of shame about these emotions that I would describe as being ugly, particularly the emotion of anger.
Yeah.
Anger being something which reminds me of childhood situations where I felt very scared and very powerless to the anger of adults around me. But to experience that in myself means that in many ways I became the monster that used to haunt me as a child. So I was then in this shame spiral post-trigger of, oh my goodness, the fact that I have the capacity to feel such extreme emotions feels really scary to me. I don't even know who I am right now. This isn't me. This isn't how God created me to be. Deep, deep, deep shame. And Justin helped me. You just gave me time and space that week. And over the course of a few conversations, you helped me to de-escalate from the emotion. One thing that was really powerful in our conversations is that there was no emotion I would show you that was too much.
Right.
So where I might be feeling really embarrassed to express the level of rage that I had been feeling, you met that as if it was no problem. You know, it was just like, that's okay, Flo. Like, and you're human. You felt a strong emotion about that. That's okay. Keep breathing. You're right. And slowly, kind of inch by inch, allowing me to actually lay all of my emotions out on the table, realize that they were all manageable, that actually none of them were going to be so overwhelming that they were going to overtake me, but to allow me to take a seat back and then start to investigate, okay, so what's the root? Because there's got to be a root here. And for me, again, as I say, the journey I've been on has been just having to investigate, even from childhood, from teenagehood, areas in my life where the desire to meet all of my own needs equated to being a good girl. That actually to come to the table asking for help, presenting a need, made me an inconvenience, made me perhaps annoying, perhaps was met by people in those moments who didn't have the time to see that 4-year-old Flo was flustered and genuinely needed help, and that my reach outs, the moments where I did extend an invitation for someone to come and meet me where I was at, sometimes was met with a closed door. So actually I learned in self-protection that if I can meet all of my own needs and be pretty well seen but not heard, then I'm doing a great job and I'm not going to be a burden to people around me.
Isn't that cool that, like, even going through that process of being triggered, you're able to go really down in that journey and really expose a lot of that stuff? What do you feel like happened for you with it? Like, what do you feel like you're able to do with that information?
Well, before you do that, I just want to join on to what you're saying is, yes, like, if you don't learn about triggers when you're just pissed about the moving, you're just pissed.
Totally.
You blow off steam and then you're pissed again in a couple days or a couple weeks or a couple months.
Right. And the whole thing remains,
or whatever.
Right. It remains circumstantial to the act of moving.
Yes.
For me,
that is what did it, instead of being like, what's going on inside.
Exactly. Whereas for me, the way that this trigger was different was that it became an invitation to actually recognize, hey, this is actually a repeated pattern of behavior. It's manifested differently at different seasons of your life or through different circumstances. But I could start to thread like this common denominator root of, okay, admitting you need help equals hard. And then the lack of other people coming to give you help equals trigger zone. All right, let's go deeper. Let's dive deeper. Let's dive deeper. Even taking myself back to specific memories of I moved out. My parents moved away when I was still pretty young, still actually a teenager. So I moved into my own apartment probably prematurely. At the point when most young adults aren't ready to leave home, I was living on my own. And I remember in that place feeling so ill-equipped to do that. I didn't even know how to change a light bulb. I remember not knowing that I needed to pay council tax and having the council knocking at my door. And I felt so embarrassed in my naivety that I didn't know how to do all these strong adult things. But at the same time, I was being a good teenager. I was holding down the fort. I was trying as hard as I could to be an adult and to have my sheesh together.
Yeah.
And it was like this paradox inside of me where I would berate myself for not having it together, but to the outside world, try to present this really impenetrable force of, I'm good, I've got this. You don't have to worry about me. Don't check in on me. It's cool. Even releasing my parents from any guilt that they might have felt for the fact that I was living alone that early. Don't worry, mom and dad. I've got this. I'm good. I'm on top of it. Inside,
so you became
though,
very independent,
and
very
but also
self-sufficient,
but with a heavy like imposter syndrome thing.
Yeah,
you know, the voice inside of me going,
I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this.
100%,
but not letting anyone see that weakness or that vulnerability or that need.
No, I had game face on at all times. Game face protecting myself, protecting my parents' decision, protecting the fact that I was totally sorted and didn't need any input. But inside, I was having high anxiety, breakdowns on regularly multiple times a week.
Wow.
And I had no idea how to admit that to the outside world.
Yeah, it's a very common human thing, I think, what you're describing, that we try to do that. But what happens is your little girl then gets stuck back there.
Right.
So now you're the adult moving, but your teenage self is still having emotions that never got validated or seen.
Right.
Because you can't move through emotions. You can't get emotions out of your body either if you don't actually validate and connect to them.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating because when you're telling this story, I'm like, well, were you able to get to compassion for that girl?
Yeah. And for me, the compassion journey actually had to come through looking at the anger.
Tell us about that.
When that moment, when you started really looking at the anger from the
from the anger, from the moving trigger, and then starting to look back in my life, and I really started to realize that anger in my mind has been an unforgivable emotion.
That's very interesting.
That I can experience deep sadness, I can experience deep regret, I can experience deep loneliness.
You're a 4. All of those things are allowed.
I'm a 4. That is part of my romantic, whimsical spectrum.
Yes.
No, I mean, I've moved through so much. I've really had to dive into emotions. And I think part of being a 4 is that I say this to other 4s, I'm like, guys, we actually have a responsibility to really dive into emotional health. Because when we swell out, we can swell out. And so learning how to have compassion for these emotions, which other people might deem to be scary or too much, has actually been a really integral and helpful part of being a 4. But anger, in my mind, stood on its own as this kind of big, red, ominous, unforgivable emotion.
Yeah.
And so for me, the compassion journey here was actually learning how to have compassion on angry flow. Because I didn't know
That's a big
how
deal.
to forgive angry flow. Angry flow was honestly scary to me, embarrassing. Trying to understand that God would still love angry flow when I'm feeling this emotion that I think is so ugly and I want to just run from. And the journey I had to go on was actually having to take myself back to when I was a little kid. And my dad, who has been on his own journey of maturity and an emotional health, at that point in time had a real bubbling anger issue. Anger felt unpredictable for me in the house growing up. There was often a level 10 reaction to a level 1 problem. And even as a little kid, I remember having that sense of injustice of, I don't think that me leaving crumbs out on the kitchen table merited that explosive reaction, you know? And so it was something that I judged in him as a little one and had a really, had a really strong sense of the injustice of his emotion and a resentment that emotion wasn't in check or under control. Oof. And then when I realized in adulthood that I was manifesting that same emotion, a level 10 reaction to a level 1 problem, I was bringing all of the judgment that I had had for my father and heaping it onto myself. So this has actually been a dual compassion journey of going back into memories and releasing dad.
So good.
And also within that, finding beauty in being my father's daughter and also releasing myself. And it has been painful and it's been really beautiful and really healing.
Well, the judgments that we make against people who've hurt us become the judgments that are a noose around our neck.
Yeah.
So that judgment that you had against anger, you're like, my dad is anger, I will never do this.
Right.
When anger is an appropriate emotion, because it's part of the grief process. We cannot get emotions out of our body if we don't go through the grief process. And anger is one of the emotions that helps us get through that process.
Right.
And so if you have, and I think, we've worked with a lot of clients very similarly who have made vows against anger. But anytime we hate ourselves for emotions, we don't actually get to move through the emotions.
Right.
We get stuck in whatever we hate or make judgments towards.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be interesting, Justin, to walk her through, even though maybe like a little bit of compassion on also the girl that had to grow up too fast.
Yeah.
And who never, because it doesn't sound like she got to receive compassion from adults when you were living on your own, because you weren't even showing people you needed compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Did you, have you been able to connect with compassion for her?
It's new.
Yeah, it's new.
Yeah.
Would you mind taking a minute here on the podcast and going there with us?
Yeah.
Are you open to it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I want you to just close your eyes, Flo. And I want you to just take a breath in. There's no pressure. And I'm even going to let you know that if we need to delete this out, we can delete this out for you. So you're not on the spot. And I just want to say I'm so proud of your bravery to just be connected, to even acknowledge what's going on for that girl. And Flo, can you see her? Where's she at? Is she in her apartment alone?
Yeah. She's like decorating her room in that apartment.
How old is she?
She's just turned 17. So
Okay.
she's in her final year of high school.
What's she feeling about decorating that apartment by herself?
She's frustrated because she wants help moving heavy boxes.
Yeah, she does. Does she feel like there's no one she can turn to?
Yeah, she feels she's still got the excitement to do it alone, but the awareness of what aloneness is brewing, maybe at that point.
What did she need?
I think she needed someone to really ask what she felt about this situation, for permission not to toe the party line, and to actually ask her how it feels to be the one left in a country on her own.
Go ahead and ask her that out loud.
Flo, are you really okay that your family is moving to America and that you've decided to stay behind? Does it actually feel like your decision to stay behind, or do you feel like other people have made that decision for you? It's a mixture, really. I think life still feels really full of possibility at that age and those memories. She feels genuinely excited for growing up and for her future. And London and living on her own. There's a genuine excitement there. But she's also play acting older than she is, and she knows that. And she's hiding in that, actually. She's hiding with people that are older than her, and she's hiding in hobbies that are too old for her, or like lifestyle choices that are too old for her. And there's actually just a hiddenness of my identity in being an old soul, always told that you're an old soul, or you've got such an old soul, or you're so much more mature than your age, or gosh, I'd never have thought you were a teenager, you have so much wisdom. And there's like an eagerness I know at that age that's feeding my identity. It feels really good, but it also feels crippling. It's like this underlying nervousness of if they really knew, if they really saw me, this whole thing is a house of cards and it will blow over. So I'm in the middle.
I'm so sorry that you learned that being an adult was how to be loved. I'm so sorry that you learned that maturity and performing was the way to get acceptance and to feel successful. I'm so sorry that independence and self-sufficiency were taught as the way to be powerful. I just keep seeing this picture of this girl who wants to play with dolls existing inside of you, and like the little girl part of you, and like the imposter part of you, like shoving that little girl in a closet.
Yeah.
And being like, you can't want your parents. Like I heard this little girl be like, but I want my parents to live here. Like, but I want to have parents. And then I heard like the adult version of you being like, no, I'm fine without my parents and I don't need to need them. And it's powerful to look like I don't need them and that it's fine if they leave. And that's what everybody wants from me, and that they will like it if I'm fine with them leaving. And my job is to not ruffle feathers, and my job is to not be a burden, and my job is to not cause any issues. But I see the little girl side of you being like, I don't want to grow up yet.
Like I hear her saying, it's not my time. It's not actually my time. Like it almost like her saying, this is so being forced on me. And so there's the part of you that's excited, and then the other part of you that's like, I'm feeling this is forced on me right now.
Yeah.
Does that feel true?
Yeah, big time. It feels like she knows, but in even just, a year or two, she's meant to leave the nest and go to university. But that feels safe. That feels good. I didn't know the nest would leave me first.
Yeah.
And there's like a free falling anxiety feeling there that feels familiar. I remember that feeling of just, the safety net left me. I didn't leave the safety net.
It's interesting because I see this picture of her at 17, but I also see this picture of her at like 10 to 12 or something like that, even earlier, where she's like, I was told I had to be older way back here. Like I was already being told to put away my dolls and be an adult and be mature. And I don't know if that's true for you, but that's like the imagery that I get, like that she was like, it was already happening way earlier than it was supposed to.
Yeah.
Does that feel true?
Yeah, that feels true. It's not from adults, it's actually from peers. It's being the girl in class who like believes in fairies beyond the point where you're socially meant to. It's that like willing, quite fey naivety, living in my imagination, being so happy just to be playing in my imagination. And girls on the playground who, you know, are young women becoming young women. And I feel like there's like aches in that season when you're meant to stop playing imaginary games, and you're meant to stop believing, and you're meant to start caring about school discos and boys. And I really just want to like play imaginary pirates, and I'm sort of almost 2 years behind in terms of the games and the imagination place that I want to be in. And I feel I'm aware of my naivety, like again, being caught out in my naivety feels really embarrassing. And there's a beauty to being childlike, but it just felt embarrassing. It felt like something I needed to be ashamed of and wrap up and get over with. And I didn't want to say goodbye to it. And that was, what age is that? That's maybe 8 or 9.
Yeah.
8 or 9. And that feels really, that's a churn up time. That's a confusing time.
Yeah, I want to say a few things to that.
Yeah.
Precious young Flo, I give you permission to be an imaginative child the rest of your life. The lie that was sold to you here in this space is that you have to abandon your imagination. You have to abandon your play and grow up, or there's something stupid or dumb about you. And I break the lie that says that it's shameful to be childlike in nature, that it's shameful to dream, to play, to wonder, to be awestruck by life. There's so much pain in here that said that there's something wrong with how you were made, that your creativity was bad, that your innocence was bad. And there's been this shame around your innocence, and I release you from the shame that you felt around your innocence. And I just say that your innocence is good, and it's not bad, and you're not stupid.
Yeah.
There's not something broken about you as an 8-year-old. There's not something stupid and broken about you as a 28-year-old. If you have childlike innocence and wonder and play, and you've been feeling shame for being young throughout your whole life and always trying to say, no, I'm good. I'm older. I've got all this. I've got it all together. I don't need help because I'm an adult. See, I'm not stupid. I'm not a dumb little girl. I'm not naive. I can figure this out. And there's been so much stress and so much anxiety. And I want you to know that you are loved, that you are not bad. I see you and I see what you need. And what you need is to know that you are accepted as you are. And not only are you accepted, but this is worth celebrating. Childlike innocence, wonder, play, and creativity is truly the essence of what we're supposed to live out of in our humanity. We're supposed to live at that place. Even as adults who are aware of some of the things, tasks set before us, we're supposed to have that play and that peace and that joy and that wonder. And I give you permission to re-engage that. I give you permission to not have to feel dumb any longer. I don't think you're dumb. I don't think you're stupid for this. I don't think you just need to grow up. I don't think you're an outcast for having an imagination and having wonder and wanting to be creative and play. It's from the foundation of this childlike creativity and play that all great things are created. And so I just recognize this part of you as a gift. And I am so sorry that it felt like the nest left you. That it felt like the thing that was there to support you or supposedly supposed to be supporting you disappeared out from under you. I'm sorry that it felt like you had to put on a really good face. A very comfortable, I got this face. I'm so sorry that it created a world whereas you're lugging boxes on a hot day that you feel trapped inside of yourself, not able to ask, can you please help me? I don't have this. And you have permission to not have it even when you do have it. You have permission to not have to get to a breaking point to then ask for help. You have permission to receive help and ask for help long before it gets to that. You are worthy of love. Joining in on your story and participating with you is of great value to so many people. Getting to participate in taking care of you is a gift.
I want you to see you as you are now, going back to that 8-year-old. And I want you to see yourself grabbing that girl and bear hugging her. And saying, I'm so sorry that I told you I was ashamed of you. I'm so sorry I told you that people wouldn't like me if they saw you. I'm so sorry that I told you that in order to be worthy, I had to get rid of you. You are beautiful and you matter and you're worthy of my time and my attention. And I don't need to kill you. I don't need to hide you. If I let you still live in your imagination pirate land, you'll find people who like that land.
Mm-hmm.
It's not your job to make everybody impressed. You're worthy of love. And I want you to see yourself on the day in your bedroom when you're moving in and you're 17. And I want you to go up to that girl and I want you to bear hug her.
Mm-hmm.
And I want you to tell her she has permission to be sad, even though she's also happy, and that she can tell her parents what she needs. She can tell them that she's sad about them leaving and that she has anxiety and that she's scared and that she doesn't know about all the taxes. She can tell people that it's hard living on her own and that she doesn't have to keep all of that inside. I want you to apologize and say, I'm so sorry I made you stuff all of your needs inside and made you stuff all of your vulnerability inside. I'm so sorry that I made you pretend. You were worthy of having a voice and having needs and needing people. You're not a burden and you're not worth something because you can be independent. And you're not being a good daughter just because you have no needs. And you're not being a good friend just because you're fine. That actually people want to love you and your needs and want to show up for you. And you're allowed to be hurt by your parents moving, even if you understand it. And then I want you to see yourself going back to the girl who's lugging the huge boxes and is angry and pissed. And I want you to just see yourself walk up to her, put the box on the ground, and just hug her.
Mm-hmm.
And say, it's okay that you're angry. You've been alone for a long time. And you're trying to get my attention. And I love that. What are you thinking or feeling? Or seeing?
I've never done this and been able to visualize it, so like so accurately or so purely. Like I really can see those three flows. I feel that like that rejection of innocence, that rejection of naivety, so acutely. Like I wasn't planning on talking about that in any way, shape or form, and then finding that, it's almost like, there's the release, you know, like, that was it, that's it. That's like the pinprick that started this all.
The rejection of your innocence. Yeah. The rejection of your naivety and your having needs and being vulnerable and not knowing everything about the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, that innocent part of you is so beautiful. I think so many of us reject the innocent part of us. We decide that's what made us unlovable. That's what made us vulnerable.
Right.
But typically that is what is delightful and endearing to people.
It's the most redemptive parts of us.
It's also the part God asks us to live from.
To become like children.
Yeah, I feel tender. I think I feel a love for that 8-year-old. I don't normally even enjoy looking at photos of that 8-year-old.
Wow.
Awful haircut.
An innocently cute haircut.
Yes, and like apricot leggings and sparkly t-shirts, and she's probably like wearing fancy dress, like a costume of some sort, and I'm just, embarrassingly old, but I love her.
Yeah. I'm really sorry that she had to disappear so fast. I see this picture of her she got stuck in time in there.
Yeah.
And so there's like a part of you that actually like can have access to that innocence again, but also a part of you that needs to grow up, that has been stuck back there and not needs to grow up, like needs to get over your innocence or whatever. But whenever we leave parts of us, that means they get like arrested in development.
Yeah, they get
and so
trapped
then
there.
They don't actually get to. What was that? I saw your brain connect.
That was different, but I did have an aha. Yeah, this is so funny. When Disney started doing, like, they remade the live versions of all the animations.
Yeah.
I'm not one for a Disney film, and for some reason my dad and we were having I was visiting him in LA, and we decided to go to the cinema, and the only thing that was on was the Disney remake of Cinderella. This is 5 years ago or something. I'm in my 20s, right? This is like me and my dad. We've just had Cheesecake Factory. We're going to the cinema together.
Yeah.
Begrudgingly, we decide that, all right, we'll go and see that film. And I remember as the credits rolled, I just started weeping, weeping and weeping and weeping. And he just puts his arm on my neck, is what he used to do when I was a kid, and just like squeeze my neck. And it's so safe, and it's so it's such a my dad mannerism. And that he just, it was like he gave me this covering while I just wept and wept and wept through watching this thing that was so evocative of me at 8 loving princes and fairies and magic. And I don't know if we've ever quite named what happened in that moment, or if my brain's ever quite understood what happened in that moment, but almost like there was this glimmer of permission from him for me now as an adult in my 20s to actually just feel everything that comes up when I allow myself to process sweet childish things like that. And that there's a mixture of like deep desire and longing and pain, but also like the purity of that little 8-year-old comes bubbling to the surface again. I don't know, that memory just flickered by. I was like, oh, that's what that was.
That's actually really powerful that you're connecting to that.
I love that. Well, this is what we're saying about if you avoid triggers, you don't get to collect these pieces of you that you need along the way, these pieces that help bring you back into wholeness and connection, and triggers help you recognize the parts of you that you've lost or that you're losing or you're rejecting, and they help give you an invitation to get love into that place, compassion into that place that you need in order to move forward. And then did you do any action after that, after moving, to actually change?
Yeah, I had some vulnerable conversations with old roommates, new roommates, and friends. And someone in my life, a wise person, said to me, Flo, every time that you don't tell me that you need me to show up for you as a friend, you're actually robbing me of an opportunity to be a good friend for you.
Totally.
And I'm done with you making those cases against me.
Yeah.
And it was like beautifully brutal advice. And so I started the process of, in retrospect, letting people into that experience, not from a place of criticism, not from a place of like jadedness if you didn't show up for me, but actually saying, I didn't create any space for you to show up for me. I actually robbed you of an area where you could have loved me in that moment, and we could have connected, and it could have been good for us as friends. Hey, this is really hard for me.
Yeah.
It takes a lot for me to admit I need help. Can we commit to 2 things? Can you reach out and probe me on whether I need help, and push? I give you permission to push past my pride wall and to find it if it's there, if I do actually need someone to come and love me in that moment. And equally, I'm going to vulnerably start asking for help. And just because you're in on this process, it doesn't mean you need to bend over backwards. Like if you genuinely can't do it, I will manage my emotions.
Yes.
But I'm going to start doing this, and I just want you to know that it feels risky every time I do. And it might seem like nothing, but full disclosure, I probably spent about 50 minutes composing the text. Right.
Totally.
Right. And just letting people into the vulnerability of that journey. I'm proactively saying, hey, I want to go on it. I'm going to invite you into it.
Because literally what you do then when you get triggered is that part of you that had to learn to grow up too fast. You have to then do behavior in the opposite way, which is like, oh, well, when I was 17, I didn't ask for help in the ways that I need.
Right.
But now I can, and I can redeem that time. I can be vulnerable. I can actually do a behavior. And that's where recognizing our triggers puts us in the driver's seat, where we get to be powerful because we get to recognize what is actually going on inside of us, what needs compassion and love inside of us, what needs acknowledgement and validation inside of us. And then what do I need to do to give myself the things I was never able to get that I needed? And it's so powerful when you learn to do, and in the Pathway to Freedom, we make it very simple. We make 5 steps to like work through any trigger so that you can learn how to get love and healing, how to see that triggers are not bad. Like over and over again, people need to be brainwashed. Triggers are not bad. Triggers are not bad. Triggers are not bad. The point being that we're powerful to heal. We're powerful to make new choices, to reparent ourselves, to get back to love with ourself, to find the parts of ourself that we lost. and to create a new pathway forward into healing. So, Flo, would you do a quick summary of, I know you did Living Fully Alive and you did Pathway to Freedom. Would you do a quick summary of what you kind of experienced between the two?
Yeah, certainly. So LFA that was my first introduction to Stumvoll courses. And it's like a big overview of welcome to the world of emotional health. So I think, like many students I know who've taken it, for me it was like a full throttle immersion into a new language, a new way of unpacking emotions and ideas around emotions. But it's also like, here's a plethora of new ideas. We're going to sprinkle our way across a lot of different things, and you're going to be absorbing information and learning new concepts
at a high pace.
It's like high level, high pace, really amazing. Pathways is really different because from the get-go, it's really in-depth practical teaching. So it feels like every single session you're left with action items. It's kind of like these tangible, practical methods of investigating your thoughts, investigating your behavioral cycles. It felt like I was given a whole new tool belt that I could start implicating, honestly, from week 2 of starting to actually put into practice the concepts that I was learning. Right. So I think if I was to differentiate, LFA feels theoretical and Pathways is like a very hands-on practical course. It's also in depth, right? Because it's specifically about triggers. So it's hey, let's take 10 weeks to dive into this one idea and go into beautiful detail. And it's you and Pizzi, which is a different flavor to you two when you're teaching together. You bounce off each other in different ways. You pull new anecdotes out of each other. I loved it. I was giggling a lot the whole way through it. There's so much pain and so many giggles. So
that is very, very true.
It's great. I'm very excited for everyone to do it.
If you're listening, this is like the last chance you have to sign up for this round of the Pathway to Freedom. We will be doing it again. If you hear about this and you want to get put on the waiting list, let us know. If you want to get in now. This is your chance. Email Flo.
We're friends now, so we can chat.
Email her at courses@justinandabi. That's justinandabi.com.
Yeah. And I so recommend doing this with your friends, doing this with your parents, doing this with your coworkers, doing this with your employees. It will change the culture of the group, and it'll get a place where people take ownership and learn how to navigate relationship and conflict. And it's beautiful and empowering.
Starts dismantling unnecessary conflict inside of any of those cultural spaces, family, business, whatever you will, marriage.
Yeah. So. And then also we have Living Fully Alive coming up in January.
Yeah. So much fun. Flo, thank you so much for being so vulnerable today and sharing and letting us walk down that pathway with you.
Thanks for always being safe, you two. I'm very special to me.
Oh, you're very special to us.
Yeah, dittos.
Yeah, we like her. We're keeping her.
Yes. You stay here. You're going nowhere.
I'll be here.
All right, everybody. justinandabi.com to sign up for that if you want. And remember, rate, review, subscribe, and share. If you haven't done that already, that's the way that if you got something out of this, that's the way that you can pay it forward to us. Just rate, review, subscribe, and share.
Yep.
All right. Do you want to say goodbye in your British accent?
Goodbye, everybody.
Oh, there it was.
That was my radio voice.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.